Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, patch day once again, and we've got some really cool stuff in here today. We've got a whole load of new content coming up. We've got some really cool adjustments and quality of life changes that I'm quite excited for as well, and an absolute mountain of bug fixes as well, which is always welcome. So, let's take a look. Wild Appalachia. So, highlights: Lying Low questline, design and balance changes, item renaming, hell yes, new news screen, and coming next week, a new dungeon. So, patch numbers. Let's actually get into the meat of the thing. So, the new questline, Lying Low. Lying Low, new questline now available. Begin your investigation into this mysterious case by finding and reading one of the Sheep Squatch Ate My Brother posters, either in Lewisburg or at train stations around Appalachia. Poster is also available in the Atomic Shop for free up until 9 AM Eastern Time on May the 7th, which will be 2 PM British Summer Time. So, yeah, a little bit of time on that one, which is cool. Once you're claimed, put it up in your camp, read it, start your quest. Same as it was with the Wasted on Xion quest. New dungeon, Burrows, coming on April 16th, so that'll be next Tuesday, which is cool. Looking forward to that. I should actually be able to stream that actually on the day, so maybe we'll have a look into that. So, new dungeon experience becomes available 1 week following today's patch. So I think what they're trying to say there is that it's available in a week, not available for a week. At least I sincerely hope so. It would seem like a lot of wasted effort if it's only available for a week. There we go. So, this challenging venture will take you beneath Harper's Ferry as you follow the footsteps of the Brotherhood of Steel, who sent their forces underground for unknown reasons. Even the hardiest of Appalachian adventurers will find difficulty exploring the burrows alone. Assemble a squad and make sure your gear is up to snuff before taking on this subterranean battleground. Not a vast amount of information about it. I assume there'll be patch notes next week giving us more details, which I'm looking forward to. Obviously no spoilers, I assume. But yeah, new challenging dungeon in the Harper's Ferry region. I'm curious where the entrance to that's going to be, because we already know the Brotherhood spent some time in the region of Harper's Ferry. I wanted to check out the old armory there. I'm guessing it'll tie into that, and then there's a few spots in that area where an entrance to an underground dungeon could be, so it'd be interesting to see how that actually pans out. But if it's a group thing, if it's going to be that tough, who knows, maybe we'll have to see who's available when I actually stream it. Be a good excuse to start doing some group stuff. So, watch this space, make sure you're there for the stream. So that's next Tuesday. In the meantime, design and balance changes. Survival mode. Nothing in here is making me want to play survival mode any more than I did already, which is to say, I don't. However, death mechanics. Amount of aid dropped on death has been significantly reduced. That does take some of the sting out of it, I'll have to admit. Same thing for number of caps lost. Previously, it was double your character level. Now it's 25% of your character level. That's a massive drop in what it costs you. So I'm guessing there's an awful lot of slaughter going on in survival mode. And people are getting absolutely wiped out if that's what's going on here. That would be my assumption anyway. So scoreboards are being changed so that the top 3 players that appear on your map are now the ones ranked by number of kills rather than who survived the longest. Makes sense, it's most useful for people who want to avoid them. Temporary invulnerability. In the recent hotfix, we addressed an issue that could prevent the temporary invulnerability effect from being applied correctly to players after fast travelling or respawning. So there's been a thing, from what I hear, of people camping near train stations and the like, because I think they're the only places you can quick travel to and respawn at. So people are camping them there and just attacking people as soon as they load in, giving them no chance to defend themselves. This temporary invulnerability is designed to alleviate that, and apparently wasn't functioning properly. This is, from the sound of it, something they fixed either during the week or last week or something. Doesn't say either way, actually. But yeah, that should be functioning properly now, or should be functioning properly anyway, rather, at this stage. So here's a big one that I think everybody is excited for, certainly everybody I've spoken to. A vendor from each faction, except the Enclave, can now be found downstairs in the shops at the White Spring Resort. This should help reduce the need for fast travel in order to visit multiple vendor factions when buying and selling items. that's the downstairs area inside where all the vendors are already. I'm curious where exactly they're going to find the space to put more and what they're going to change to do that. Might be worth having a look. Just plain curious, really, more than anything else. I know they've added some more stuff in there recently, which is cool. The pool of caps that was previously 200 allocated to each vendor, for each faction rather, has now been merged into one combined pool of 1400. So it's the same number of caps, it's just accessible from any one vendor. And now it's shared across all factions, as I say. It means that buying items from or selling items to a vendor will update the pool of caps across all vendors, in short. Vendor cap pool still resets after 20 real-time hours, which is vaguely interesting because I thought it was 24. There we go. Doesn't change anything, but interesting nonetheless. The other side of this, I think, particularly with the cap pool that's interesting, is that any vendor who is tied to one of these factions will be part of that cap pool. So if, like me, you are up at the Northern Savage Divide at the moment, if you haven't checked out my new camp, video went up today, do go and check it out. But the nearest place for me to go and sell stuff is a nearby train station where there is a raider vendor. Now I can literally go to this one train station, sell everything at the one point, and save myself a fortune. I mean, I could travel to the White Spring, but that's considerably further away, costs more caps, so now I don't have to do that either. So, turret attack, damage and range tuning. So they should function more like ordinary weapons in PvP now, so they will have greater range, so comparable to a similar weapon, so laser turrets having the same as a laser gun, shotgun same as a combat shotgun. And the damage scaling has been remodeled to match player damage scaling as well. So the idea is to make them more dangerous to players, as up until now it's very, very easy to just sit outside of their range and just cap away at them and finish them off, at which point they're not really that effective unless there's a player coming over to interrupt you. However, there's also an interesting side note relating to PvP in general here. It talks about the damage increase. Presumably that's how they balance out the damage done in PvP, which might account for why I'm seeing higher level players getting a damage buff that's wiping me out in under a second on the rare occasions I end up in PvP. Which is, yeah, I think this is kind of a little point in this direction at where some of the problems surrounding PvP, in my opinion at least, are. Getting wiped out by a player who is just literally standing there soaking up all your damage and dishing out so much you can't fight back is, you know, something needs to be done about that. Doesn't really make PvP that much fun or viable in any kind of way. But before I get into a rant about that, let's move on. Additional design and balance updates. If I get that one out. Camp. A chance to acquire milk from a Brahmin spawned at a player camp has been reduced by half. So I haven't actually tried this out, largely because I have terrible memories of Brahmin in camps from, well, settlements in Fallout 4, and I'm not going back down that road. That portal to hell can stay closed. So, challenges. Consume alcohol challenges have had their requirements reduced from 25 and 50 down to 10 and 20, respectively. And the same is true of the craft alcohol challenges as well. Crafting. Craftable hats and outfits have had their costs increased, crafting costs rather, and their cap values decreased, or several of them have. And this is a last-minute change apparently, but it's been done because a lot of people are picking craftable things, possibly from the Atomic Shop, I don't know, picking up some of the more craftable outfits, and then selling them, and basically it's functioning as an exploit. More of an error than an exploit, but it's not the way they wanted it, and people are making undue amounts of money from it as far as Bethesda are concerned, apparently. So that has been dramatically reduced, whilst at the same time still keeping them craftable. Food. The rate at which food spoils is now more consistent. Cool. Not quite sure what the actual implications of that are. It's pretty vague, but not such a bad thing. Hopefully that'll mean, you know, your most recently crafted thing will be the last thing to spoil, no matter what it is. Items. Resources that glowing creatures drop as loot in nuke zones, such as glowing mass and hardened mass, now instanced for all players who deal damage to those creatures. So that should be a lot more. It avoids the loot goblin effect, shall we say. Equipping armor with a cryogenic or legendary mod no longer causes the wearer to become hostile to attacking players in adventure mode prior to returning fire. In short, these armors do damage to somebody who attacks you, particularly in melee. But in the case of PvP, it means it takes the choice as to whether or not you want to attack, or return fire in short. away from the player and just puts it on a game mechanic that can't make a decision. So it no longer does that, which is good. I have a feeling they've tried to fix this before and it clearly hasn't worked out that well. Or maybe it was a similar effect on different mods, but there we go. Definitely giving choice back to the player is a positive change. And VATS no longer targets friendly or neutral players or creatures. So one of the few things I actually do use VATS for here is to scan for any creatures that may be around me if I've heard something. Doesn't always work, but you know. Now, if it does find something, at least I'll know straight off the bat that it is definitely hostile. So, that's fine. And it also reduces your chance of accidentally shooting something you don't want to shoot, so not such a bad thing. Also, nothing to stop you shooting them if you want to, I suppose. User interface. New feature, new screen. After logging in, the new screen will automatically display to notify you of new announcements. Presumably that's moving it off the launcher effectively and putting it in-game, or copying it in-game, something to that effect. There's a bit more information on the main loading screen, which is fine. So, another big one that a lot of people are keen on, and I'm very happy to be wrong on one point about. New feature, item renaming. Add a personal touch to a wide variety of items, giving them custom names, including apparel, armor, weapons, power armor chassis, and power armor. Now, I honestly didn't think that power armor was going to end up being included, because I had a feeling that you can't actually rename your power armor in Fallout 4. I am somewhat less confident in that assertion right now, but either way, I'm pleased to be wrong in my concern there. So, yeah, very, very good, because particularly power armor chassis needed the ability to rename because they're all the same and you can't tell which one's which. So, happy day, in short. One of my first priorities when I jump in is definitely going to be to label my power armor. Another useful little trick you can do is put like a full stop or a dash or whatever at the start of your name, at the start of the item name, and it'll default to the top of the list, assuming it works the same way it did in Fallout 4, which I'd imagine it will. And then basically it makes it much, much easier to organise your inventory. Your most commonly used items can sit at the top, stuff you're wearing, whatever. And it makes it easier to find the stuff you're not, because everything underneath will then subsequently be sorted alphabetically. So, handy for inventory management. So you go through either your Pip-Boy or your workbench or your stash and just select the inspect option, and then rename pops up at the bottom. Change it as many times as you like, and you can choose an option to clear name to restore its default name. That's something that wasn't in Fallout 4 and is probably a good change. And of course, it only appears to the player who chose to rename the item. If you pass it on to somebody else, drop it on the ground, anything like that, sell it, it will default to its original name again. It's probably not such a bad thing. It stops people using item names to troll people. Okay, additional user interface updates. Item assignment icons. When viewed in the stash or transfer menus, items that have been assigned to an object now display icons next to their names indicating where they've been assigned. At the moment, these icons will only appear on items assigned to the fermenter. In future updates, they're going to expand that. So, I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about here. So, if any of you guys want to shed some light on that, drop me a comment, because I have no idea what this is talking about. Probably haven't done enough brewing, I'm guessing that's implying, but yeah, if you want to throw some light on that, I'd appreciate it. I'm utterly stumped by that. Hopefully it means more to you guys than it does to me. So, items that have condition now display condition bars next to their names when viewed in the fermenter. Okay, and this is an interesting one. The stash container preview window has been removed, and the transfer menu must now be opened in order to view the contents of your stash. So that's the little pop-up window when you basically move your crosshair over the stash or any other kind of container. Gives you a little indication of what's in there and gives you quick access to it, so you can just tap on whatever you want. That doesn't happen on your stash anymore, as of this patch anyway. In short, they feel it wasn't a particularly efficient way of moving through your stash. Probably true. Every time I've accidentally picked something up that way, it has been an accident and I didn't want to pick it up. So, as an added bonus, it gives a small improvement to performance, presumably obviously just when you're in your camp. But I think this will probably be a change they've made, partly because performance improvements are good anyway, but also because they've been implying there are new things coming to camps, new decoration items, and a relaxing of some of the restrictions on how and what you can build. We've already seen some of them around turrets and things, and lights, but it sounds like there are more coming, which is awesome, very happy for that. a little performance increase in this area is probably indicative of further changes in that area. So that would be my guess anyway. And you know, anything that makes your camp run more smoothly is got to be a good thing. You're packing a lot of high data stuff into a small area with your camp, so yay for that. And remove support for voice box. What? Remove support for Xbox Connect as a microphone option in the interest of overall performance. So you can't use your Connect microphone anymore if you're on Xbox, but hopefully your game will run better. Yay. So at this stage, bug fixes. There are about a metric ton of them in here. So I'm not going to go through them all. There are a couple of things I've picked out that we will take a look at. And one point I wanted to make beforehand, which is obviously the fact that this far into the game's life, which admittedly is not really that far, but still, it's not ideal that they're still finding so many bugs. It is what it is. However, if you thumb through these, and I'll put a link down below if you want to, you find that nearly all of them are very specific. They're very unique situations, so most of the time people aren't running into them. They're only if you happen to be in that specific situation, which is a good thing. I also think it implies something quite positive about the healthy state of the player base, because in order for Bethesda to fix these, players have to find them, report them, Bethesda then have to go back and check out the bug for themselves, figure out what's going on, and fix it. So, in order for all that to happen, especially as the vast majority of people realistically are probably not submitting bug reports, it implies that to me at least, that the player base is high enough and engaged enough with the game to go through the rigmarole of doing that on a regular basis, because, I mean, look at this. And that's just today. The previous patch was no different. I don't imagine the next one will be much different either. The implications as regarding how healthy the state of the game from a player perspective is, I think, quite good. Rather contrary to the narrative that's going around online, as always. But yeah, I think that should be a good little reassuring sign, I suppose, to those of us who are more engaged with the game. So, as I say, I'm not going to go through it all right now. Links down below if you do want to see it for yourself. But there are a couple of points that I did want to take a look at. Specifically, enemies. Insult bot will now insult you. I had no idea there was even an insult bot in the game, but that sounds like an absolute riot. So, anybody know where that is? I'm curious. Ranged enemies. Fixes an issue where certain creatures were not using their sprint movement behaviour within max attack range. So in short, they should better assess the distance between the player and themselves, and you'll get more enemies that use melee anyway, rushing you. Particularly when it comes to things like anglers, honeybeasts, and snallygasters. These are some of the nastiest creatures to wind up close and personal with, so as an initial effect, it will make combat a little more challenging when you encounter these creatures, which mostly I'm in favour of. Anglers tend to be a reason for running away for me, so we'll see. It's been a while since I've faced off against any, to be fair, so hopefully that'll mean more aggressive enemies and, yeah, more challenging combat, which is cool. And respawn. Large enemies no longer spawn in incompatible locations. That sounds like it could be quite interesting. I'm picturing a super mutant behemoth crammed into a very, very small red rocket station or something like that and not being able to get out through the door. So, a few exploit changes, specifically that Gatling lasers and Gatling plasmas could be exploited in such a way as they wind up with infinite ammo. No, don't want that. Good to see that changed. So, buffs and other effects from food, particularly some of the ones listed here, red stag meat or Appalachian chili, will now persist across play sessions if you log out while the effect is still in progress. So, if you're still benefiting from the carry weight from red stag meat, for example, when you log back in, the timer will have stopped while you log out and will pick up where it left off, which is good. Weapons. Railway rifle now correctly benefits from rifle-related perks. Cool, that makes it way more viable. Not that I'm planning on using it, because it's a noisy sword, but... and finding railway spikes is a nightmare. The Salvaged Assaultron head. This one has been bust, as far as I'm aware, since day one, so I'm sure there'll be a few people who are quite happy to see the change, for fun if for no other reason. No longer fires all fusion cells in a player's infantry on the first shot. Basically meaning it's a one-shot gun and that's the end of that. So that's an improvement that should have come a long time ago, really, but good to see it change. Charged weapons, such as the Assaultron head, now correctly deal increased damage in proportion to the number of times they've been charged. Okay. And attempting to fire the salvaged assault drone ahead, that is a mouthful. While it is charging, no longer causes the player to take radiation damage as if it had been successfully fired. So presumably if it's still charging, you can't fire it, but you were getting hurt anyway, as using this gun injures you as you use it. So it's very build specific, this one. But now that won't happen if you can't actually fire it. And lastly, quest and events. This is one thing I've run into. Nearby players no longer receive miscellaneous objectives, instructing them to find another player's government supply drop. Because I got one of those, ran over and found it, because it was, what, 100 yards from my camp maybe? And it was locked, so I was like, oh, okay, pick a lock. Here's a bounty for you. So, at least you won't be tempted to go and do that. Not that I would do it again, because that was way more hassle than I wanted. And to be fair, I think I got killed by final render for that. Like, I was trying to figure out something to do with my camp and ended up not going with the plan at the time, but he popped up, came up the hillside and whacked me. And in hindsight, I have reason to believe it was actually him, as opposed to anybody else, but fun times. So, lots and lots of cool stuff in there. This has taken me a little longer than I wanted to, so hopefully I'll cut it down to a more manageable chunk, but there we go. So, looking forward to the new content. Hopefully I'll be starting to sink my teeth into... what's the name of the quest? I keep forgetting this one. The Sheer Terror quest line. Lying Low, there we are. Which is the beginning of the Sheer Terror quest line. On stream fairly soon, probably tomorrow night, I think. I'll be taking the weekend off, so I'll have another video up before the end of the week as well, I hope. So you've got something for the weekend. And for now, yeah, looking forward to trying out some of these new changes. Some very, very cool stuff that will make life in Fallout 76 much, much more convenient, fun, and just generally smoother, I think. So yeah, good patch, in my personal opinion. For now, I do hope you find that useful and informative. If you did, do hit those buttons for me. It's always very, very much appreciated. As I say, catch up with me on one of the streams, and social media links down below as well if you want to come and get in touch via any of those methods. For now, thank you very much, and I will speak to you all very, very soon.